Thank you for joining us here at Focus on Liberia, and welcome to our broadcast. Today is Sunday, and it's our Sunday primetime show, and we are happy to say welcome to the broadcast. I'm Anthony Sie, along with Mr. Dennis Jar, and we got a very special topic for you. Changing the name of Monrovia? That is the question. Some people are saying, yes, let's change the name. Why are they saying that? That is all we want to talk about in this particular broadcast. Folks, welcome, welcome. And those of you who are in the United States, we still want to take the time to say happy belated 4th of July and welcome to our broadcast. Please help us by hitting that share button quickly so that people in your contact also can be part of this conversation because this conversation is important. Here in the United States, we see changes are taking place, statues have been taken down. The name Monrovia smells like the name of somebody who was once a slave master. I don't know the history, but we got some people here to talk about that. That is our topic. Are we changing or should we change the name of Monrovia, the nation's capital? I will now turn control over to my man Dennis Jar. Mr. Jar.
We want to welcome all of you on Focus on Liberia in a special way. We want to introduce and welcome my man Chorpie Challenge, the man who has been in the vanguard of the political struggle. Chorpie, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Second is my man Mvasekie Konneh. That's my fellow literati. Mr. Konneh, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Well, it's great being here once again. I've been here several times. It's like Focus on Liberia is like a home to me now. So we're just here today for another interesting conversation. And I'm glad to be welcome here. And I'm looking forward to a great show with my fellow members of the movement to change Monrovia's name to Duko or Dugbo, whatever it is. So my man Chorpie Charlie and our professor Zawolo, great to see all of you.
Thank you, Mvasekie. Next is another, I don't know whether that teacher or the politician or the humanitarian.
Professor.
Professor Isaac Zawolo, welcome to Focus on Liberia. I'm just pulling your leg.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. Try to always stay away from these things, but when the call comes, we come in. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen across the globe, we want to welcome you to this edition of Focus on Liberia. Tonight we are discussing the name change or the proposed name change. People are saying that like other cities whose name have been changed, the name Monrovia should also be changed. In the wake of the murder of George Floyd, it started a movement, and all across the world, statues have been knocked down of people that have something to do with racism or slavery or anything of that nature, bigotry, and you name it. And so that bug also has caught some Liberians. And even before the George Floyd incident, we had people calling for not just Monrovia, but a couple of names in Monrovia or in Liberia that they believe do not reflect the history and culture of the people should be changed. So the first question is, okay, Monrovia, what is it? Our history book tells us that in 1816, with the aim of self-sufficiency, a colony was established in Africa. This was a place to repatriate ex-slaves. I don't like to call them free slaves. They are not free slaves because a slave that is free now is an ex-slave. So when that happened around 1816, we saw places like Freetown. People, ex-slaves, went there and they established a city and they call it Freetown. They are free people. And we have some of these people landing on a place in Sierra Leone called Shebrew Island. Our history book tells us that they were being bitten by mosquitoes. The place was not good for them. So they have to go and sail down to where we are today, a place called that we today know as Liberia. The first place they settled, they named that city Christopolis, meaning the city of Christ. Later on, that city of Christ became known as Monrovia, named after the 5th president of the United States, James Monroe. James Monroe, according to what we read, was a slave master. So there are people here tonight who do not want that city to be named after James Monroe, but it should go back to its original name. When I'm in Dodwicken, we call it Trubo. So all around the southeast, the name is Trubo. The Bassa people call it Dubo or Dukon. And it was named Crystal Palace when the settlers, or when I like to call them returnees, they returned to their original continent. So the name is Crystal Palace, and later the name was changed to Monrovia. That is by way or in honor of James Monroe. Tonight we're going to be discussing whether this name should be changed. We sent out invite to people on both sides of the argument. Unfortunately, we could not have anyone who is against the name change to come on tonight. So we have Mr. Mvasekie Konneh, Mr. Chorpie Charlie, and Professor Isaac Zawolo, who are all here in favor of the name change. So gentlemen, we want to say welcome again, and let's get this started. And first start with let's lay the context, the premise, and go to the history of Monrovia, how this became Monrovia. Let's go into some history here that you want to share. Let's start with Mr. Konneh.
Well, I think you already said very well how our brothers and sisters from the United States who were free after the Emancipation and Proclamation in the United States decided to seek for freedom in Africa. But many people think that white people at the time didn't believe they could share America with free black people. So they saw them as threat to the slavery industry, because slavery was still in down south when you have free men up north, whether it's Philadelphia, New York, northern states, slaves were free in those places. But down south, there were a lot of people still there that were still under slavery. Okay, so most white Americans saw the free black men as threat to them. So they feel like they and black people could not share the same country and be equal citizens. They decided to say, okay, the best thing we can do, we need to find a place where we can send these people. I think one of the places that were under consideration at the time was Haiti. But some people thought that would not be a suitable solution. They decided to say, okay, send the king from West Africa, Africa for that matter. Let's send them to Africa so they can be there. So, of course, the first place they went to settle the people, we all understand that a lot of them died from malaria. So they went further down the coast, the Guinea coast now, and they came to where we are today in Liberia. So people started settling there, and nation came into being. The first time the name of capital was called Crystal Palace, but later on they changed that to James Monroe. A lot of people say that it is because of the contribution of James Monroe to the settlement, in respect of that, in recognition of that, appreciation of that, they decided to name the capital after him, Monrovia. Okay, but Monrovia has existed since that time up to now. But we live in different world today as a result of the murder of George Floyd, an African-American fellow that was murdered by a police officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota. In the wake of this situation, there is a whole world anti-colonial movement, anti-slavery movement that is knocking down statues that seems to be honoring some of the architects of colonialism, some of the architects of slavery. Okay? Like there's so many in America, so many statues have been knocked down. Then in Belgium, there was a statue built in honor of Leopold II, who killed more than 10 million people in what is now DRC Congo. Okay, his statue is being knocked down. And like right now in Nigeria, the parliament is discussing about changing all the colonial names on the streets in Lagos and other parts of Nigeria. So the question now is, we in Liberia having gone through the same colonial experience where, you know, our nation has been seeing itself like a stepchild of America. We're in a situation where many people didn't even appreciate that we are part of Africa. We saw ourselves as an extension of America. That's why we call ourselves the stepchild of America. Do we want to remain in that position forever, or do we want to have a nation that reflects genuine African nation, just like all our neighbors are? Are we living in America, or we live in Africa? So living in Africa, something got to be to reflect our African identity as people. I think as far back as 1970, President Tubman set up a committee to review the national symbols of Liberia.
Mr. Konneh.
Yes.
I know you are in flight now. You're taking off already. But hold that thought. Let's bring in Mr. Chorpie Charlie.
All right.
To just reflect a little bit on that history.
Thank you.
We can hear you, Chorpie.
Yes, I hope I'm very clear right now.
Yes, you are.
Well, the history itself cannot be challenged, as have been asserted very powerfully by you guys. And so what I'd like to look at is the traumatic effect, the abuse that caused by these kind of colonial rule upon Liberia. You know, if you went to the doctor right now, before the doctor can really prescribe treatment for you, the doctor want to understand your medical history. What's wrong with you? How you came about to have this disease? And based on our understanding, the doctor can properly prescribe the right medication that can treat your ailment. Liberia as a nation cannot be healed if we don't go to the root of our problem, which is a historical abuse, historical problem we face at the onset of this nation. And the foremost problem we had is the naming of our country. And so, it's, even if Mr. Moron was not a slave master, the fact that he took away our name, he took away our identity, has made us to be a different kind of the human breed, a different kind of people. So in order to back to our natural station as human, we need to go back to our original being by reclaiming ourselves, understanding who we are, and then we can move forward. So the name change is very important. Monrovia was the name of Liberia before these colonialists came to Liberia. And so it makes it very, very important that we go back at our stages and try to reframe our existence. So people ask, why now? Now, because it's not want to do it. I mean, it doesn't matter whether we did not do it yesterday, it didn't matter we did not do it 10 years ago, 100 years ago. This is a job which our generation be more conscious, wants to do it public, correctly stated. If you don't know your history, you will not know where you are going. And so it is critical that the first step, even as baby as it might seem, is for us to awaken our consciousness, dig down deeper in our recesses of our own reasoning, and change this name, this colonial name, this slave master name, the abusive name, this conquering name, and return to our roots so that we can be able to regain our humanity and move forward.
Wow. Professor Zawolo, before I bring in my man, my co-host, let me hear from you. You heard that powerful premise being laid by your fellow panelists.
Yeah, I think they did very well. I think they covered most of the points. But let me take on another perspective to this. Let me look at the historicity of Liberia. When we discuss about the history of Liberia and the origin as a country, as a modern political state, we must take into consideration, we find parallels with how, the Americas were so-called discovered by Columbus. That narrative has been criticized because you don't discover a place that already been in existence, which has been inhabited. So the area that we call Liberia and the part that is called Monrovia already being inhabited by people. And it behoves those people who established Monrovia or the modern day Monrovia, the modern day city, So I've spoken to those who they have met there to see how they could even name the place, but those things was ignored. The second part about it is that those who name our city, our towns, and our streets, or have their hands tinted with blood and mistreatment of those who they met in the place they call Liberia, in the town they call Monrovia. And we cannot ignore those things. We cannot be rewarding people for atrocities that they committed against other individuals. I think today, as this discussion evolves, we're going to be talking about things like Newport, Matilda Newport, naming a school after her, a person who is said to have killed tons of Native men. So, yeah, it just behooves us to make history right by not rewarding people who were involved in these atrocities by perpetuating their names. And the Black Lives Movement associated, in the wake of the George Floyd murder, has also given impetus to the kind of discussions we're having today. And all over the world, people are making the march towards correcting the errors of history. And I think it's an important opportunity for Liberians to join in that process of correcting those errors and excesses of history. So and these are the reasons why we support this, and this is the reason why this movement has emerged.
Thank you, folks, for your initial contribution on the history component of it. Chorpie says something that we can't argue or debate the history, or no one can deny the fact that this is the history. These things actually happen. What I'm getting from all of you is that you want to correct this history. And so my question is, by changing the name of Monrovia and maybe other places and maybe streets as well, how does that correct the pain that both of you talk about, the mistreatment that was meted upon our people by the people who established the country? I'm happy that Professor Zawolo talked about the mere people on the ground. So for them to even say that they established the country is even laughable, right? But my question is, how changing the name of Monrovia and other places correct whatever happened that live in your mind and my mind and just about anybody else? How does that change that?
Well, if it doesn't change anything, if it doesn't translate into improvement of the living standard of the people, one of the things it does is that it changes the mistaken identity. It identifies the place with the name that is most common to the people who inhabited that place. That's extremely important. You and I know how important are our names to Africans. They link us to our culture, they link us to our people, to our ancestors. So the mere fact that we can change that name and give it to the name that is most common to the people, to the culture of the people who inhabited that area, I think it will be a major accomplishment, especially so in terms of writing our identity, conveying our true identity, that we truly that place was inhabited by indigenous people who have given it names. Here's the thing about it. I'm not. If you said Liberian culture and history and tribes and languages, you're going to find that it's almost uniformity and conformity when it comes to how we call that place. It is called some Duka or some form of Duka. So even that, there is a name to it. There's a name already for that place. So at least what it does is that it correctly identifies the place. And that's progress. That's a lot of accomplishment.
Professor, before I come to Mvasekie on this question, because it's important.
I just wanted to jump in. So,
all right, if you want to jump in, Charlie, let me throw this down. Charlie, hold on. So he is Isaac Zawolo. The name Isaac, I don't think is a Liberian name or is an African name. Isaac, why are you carrying that name anyway? And Chorpie, Charlie, what's your name, Charlie? This name, I don't think they are unique to Liberia. And you guys are proud of your names and you want to change Monrovia. Maybe you should start with your own name. What do you think?
I've done that. I think my name is Yeah, I'll tell you this. I carry Isaac because that's the Christian name given to my dad. I'm a junior. And so one of the things I've done over the last few years is that I've gone back to using my middle name, in this fullness. You know that of late I've been called Selakwa. So yeah, I agree with you. We need to go back to our names. If it wasn't for my dad, Isaac would have been gone a long time. It's out of respect to my father that I still carry that name. But quite honestly, I prefer to be referred to as Selakwa.
All right, Chorpie.
Yes, yes. I was jumping in back to the fundamentals.
Yeah.
You know, again, the DMT is very critical to development of our country. If you look at the governing systems in Liberia, say the birth of quote unquote a nation, you realize that one of the things that has been for a long period of time is that we were bad actors. Take for example, during the war period, most of the bad actors have been rewarded. And if you look at the foundation of our country, Liberia, that behavior of rewarding bad actors did not just begin today or yesterday. It started on our fundamental basic, on our first day, where we saw a colonial power under the guise of a military ruler, or I would call him a military ruler, because Lieutenant Robert Stockton, who the Stockton Creek in Monrovia is named after, was commanding a U.S. military vessel that came to Liberia, and he put a chief, held a pistol at the chief head to take away the hand. And since that time, the governance of Liberia has been under the influence of people who have either been abused or have been using violence in Liberia, in one form or another. I'm not speaking to a particular individual here. I'm saying generally the governance in our country has been that way. If you look at the country itself, the country is undeveloped. It has not developed over a century plus, over a century and a half. We still have one of the worst countries in the world. So if we now go back to that fundamental to understand why country is this way, if we are refusing to examine our question and begin on this fundamental premise of changing, reclaiming ourselves, then it will only be wasted effort as we continue to have all of this our discussion about governance in our country. And that's why many is so important. If today I went to Machana Village in Maryland County in the Callaway area, and the people there would never call the name Monrovia. Today I'm speaking right now as we are speaking. It's not that they don't like the name Monrovia. It's not that they don't know that name exists, but that's not the name they know. Culturally, traditionally, that's not the name they know. They will call it in a global language, to the ball, or some will say to the ball. If you went to Nima County, they will say to call something to go Tawa. Pong County, they will say to call. If you went any part in Liberia, in a rural town, village, they will never call that place Monrovia. So that tells you a whole lot that our people who are the landowner, the actual landowner of the country, the rural dwellers in the country, across the country, generally knows that that name is not Monrovia and that's not the name they ascribe to. So if those of us who are quote unquote or believed to be enlightened, why don't we join with our folks and change the name back to its origin so that we can all move the country in the direction in which we move? Today, go any part of Liberia, they will never call our place Monrovia.
Chorpie, the impression you're giving me, because you try to make the argument that the name is somehow linked to development or is somehow trying to prevent develop. I mean, whatever way I try to understand your point here is that maybe when we change the name, it will kind of give us some level of consciousness about how we develop our country. I don't think that is true.
Exactly. It's a consciousness. It's a consciousness I'm talking about. Not so much that a name change will automatically bring development, but that's a first step to consciousness to awakening you. It's a first step to taking the correct drug so you can get healed. It doesn't mean that you'll be healed immediately. It doesn't mean that you transform the conscious immediately. But that awakening will now or start speaking to other issues and start making it to really see the country in a way that you're supposed to see it and start really or trying to understand why many things went wrong and how to fix these things. So that's just the point I'm making. It does not mean we change the name today, that we're going to transform it with a magic wand. It's not going to happen. But that's the first step to awakening. Because those people who changed that name, they had a reason. And moreover, we're not the first time they changed our name. Like somebody said, we have Crystal Police. They call a Windward Coast. They call Madagascar Coast. They call all kinds of names before that time. Why were they so particular about changing the name of this place when its origin from the time Europeans got in contact with people way back in the 13th century? Why were they so particular about this name change? Why were they so particular about erasing our identity? Why were they so particular about erasing our own culture, our own history? Because they knew that if we have no sense of who we are as a people, we'll always be fools to be controlled. And that's very important for us to reclaim our identity.
So what I'm hearing is, yes, you say that's the beginning, but my question is, where do we start from? Which name? And this is why I'm asking. In fact,
I'll come in here.
Yeah, let me learn. Because in fact, the name Liberia, because prior to the coming of the settlers, we were like every area has its own name. So we were not under a whole country called Liberia. So they came and gave it that name. So now you are talking about changing the name Monrovia. There are a lot of things that needs to be changed, maybe based on the premise that you have said. Where do we start and where do we end? Why Monrovia?
Mvasekie, go.
All right. Like I was just telling you, I was trying to go back to the history of all these questions about our identity as a nation. Okay. Like Chorpie said right now, Bob Marley said, if you don't know your history, you don't know where you're coming from, you don't know where you're going. You got to have a historical concept of who you are, where you are. All right? So I want to...
Let me interrupt. That's the history you're trying to erase by changing the name Monrovia. You are erasing that history.
Yeah, it's not. That it's going to be a progression from one historical aspect to another one. Okay. Before Monrovia, our people call it Dugba or Duko, whatever that is. That was the name that was changed to Monrovia.
But let me tell you what that is. The river there is Du River.
That's
so
what
the fella said Duko, meaning do something. And the pastor said Duko, like inside of the river. Go ahead.
But my brother, the fact of the matter here is that was the name before it was called Monrovia.
Okay.
So when people say today, let's go back to the past, to our history, to our roots, and let's call it Duba, let's call it Duko. Nothing is wrong with that. After all, there's so many historical precedents for this. Okay? Ghana was not Ghana when it was under the British colonial rule. It became Ghana after its independence. They changed the name from Gold Coast to Ghana. Burkina Faso was not Burkina Faso when the French people were there. Even up to the time Sankara came to power, it was called Upper Volta. It was through the Sankara Revolution, it changed to Burkina Faso like we all know today. Zimbabwe used to be called Rhodesia, but the original name is Zimbabwe. When Robert Mugabe became president, through the revolution in Rhodesia, they changed the name to what we all know it today, Zimbabwe. And even the capital city used to be called something else. Now it's called Harare. Okay? Mali that we all know today, Mali used to be called French Sudan. After the independence, they renamed it as Mali. So it's nothing new. It's all been happening all along when people rebel against foreign colonial regime imposed on them, which is reflected in the names of their towns and city and country and their own names. So it shouldn't be any surprise today that in the wake of what happened in America, there's a worldwide revolution going on. People are questioning everything. People want to go back to their own sense of originality. So that shouldn't be surprising to anyone. And at least for us in Liberia, this is just an addition to a conversation that's been going on for more than 25 years, more than 30 years, in fact. I was saying to you, when President Toba used to be president, he set up a committee to look into all of this issue. Well, maybe because of the coup, things did not progress beyond that. Then in 2011, Dr. Amos Sawyer held a series of consultative meetings throughout Liberia about the same situation, which resulted into Madam Salif appointing a committee headed by Dr. Ewudon, to review the national symbols of Liberia. It was called National Symbol Review Committee. That committee started looking at the national anthem, started looking at different aspects of Liberian life, like the national flag and all those things. What the national flag should be. Okay? The committee work was interrupted by the Ebola crisis. So what we're talking about today, to change Monrovia name to Duko, is just an addition to something that has been in the historical process for a long time. So it's not be surprising to people. And what it does to us is like it gives us a sense of who we are. Are we Africans? Are we America's stepchild? No, if you ask me, I would say we are authentic African people. Though many people left from the United States and went to Liberia, but one can say, given the nature of the Liberian society, bringing together the natives that lived in Liberia before, and the coming of our people from here, that is a classical example of Pan-Africanism. Though we have not practiced cultural Pan-Africanism in Liberia, but our makeup is Pan-Africanism. So what we are saying today, to change the name of Monrovia to Duko or Duba, is in line with our Pan-African aspiration, because we want to see ourselves as authentic African people, authentic Liberian. Okay, so the name change for Monrovia is just part of the historical process that has been in the making for more than 30 years. That's what I just wanted to add.
Mvasekie, let me interject.
I was asking, where do we start from? And because it's going to open a Pandora box with this whole name change thing.
And they are saying we should start from Monrovia, right? Then is what I wanted to ask.
No, that's not what they're saying.
I want to ask Mvasekie this question. So he's talking about we want to feed the saints.
Mr. C.A.
Go ahead.
Let him complete that, because he didn't answer the question. Where do we start from? Are you saying we should start from Monrovia?
Yeah, we're going to start from Monrovia now.
Okay.
I think the new movement is starting from Monrovia to change the name of Monrovia, but other things may be added onto it. But what I'm trying to say, saying we already have a history of people talking about this thing, you cannot go with Monrovia alone without adding other aspects to it, because it is something already in the making. As 2014.
Mvasekie, yes, my question. You try to make the point that one of the things in this process that will help us to feel our Africanness, is to remove these colonial labels, on our country. Yes. I don't see how that's going to get. Look, we are proud people. If you went to your village today, I don't see how your presence in that village, talking with your family, eating cola, dancing the traditional dance, I don't see how those things don't really inspire your Africanness in you, and that a name change from Monrovia to a Duko will do that. We have so many things in our culture that we can relate to for us to feel our Liberianness and our Africanness. I don't think that's the changing names. What's your defense to that? Well, Professor want to jump on that one.
Let him go, but
okay.
Let him go, and then I can add it to you.
Okay, yeah. All right. Go ahead, Mvasekie.
All right. You know, and I know that all along, and I know my man Dennis can attest to that, Liberians see themselves as an extension of America, which is not true. So we don't see ourselves as Africans all along, because we feel like only until the war came and we started going to other African countries, we never had the feeling that we are African country. Even when the war started, where the our politicians ran to first? They came to America to say, Papa America, go and help us to put the fire out. Papa America told us, no, you guys are African people. You're going to want African people to help you. That's how we went back to ECOWAS to say, you need to come help us to put the fire out in our house. Okay? So we need to develop a consciousness that we are in Africa. And one of the most important aspects of that is the nation capital. I can go to Saklepe. I'm from Saklepe. If I go to Saklepe, I feel belong there naturally. But the fact of the matter is, we all have a nation and there is something called a capital which you all share. If that capital's name does not reflect our originality of African people, something is wrong with our mind. And we have to clear our mind first before we can even build a nation. Many times we all complain, why Liberia is not like this? Like, why Liberia is not like that? I went to Ghana, I saw something there. I went to Senegal, I saw something there. But I come to Liberia, nothing is there. You look at our TV, our music is not even played on the radio. All those things have some psychological effect on us as a people. And in order to resolve all this problem, we need a name change. Nigeria is saying, change the colonial name from our street. So there's a worldwide movement against colonialism, against enslavement of other people, and we as Liberians, we cannot be left behind. When it came to the formation of the OAU, there are a whole lot of things where Tugman and other African leaders connected. It's the same thing as here today. Do we see ourselves as African people, or do we see ourselves as an extension of America, which put us in a situation where we call ourselves America's stepchildren? Is that what we are, or we are African people? That's the question. So we need to open our minds and understand the reality of our time based on historical factor to say, look, today, Monrovia has to be changed from what it is to Duko, because that's the name people call it before. So history has to be respected.
All right. Okay. Professor Zawolo.
Let me add here. Look, one of the things one of the common themes, if you listen to each one of us, you will see that we are not just speaking about today, and it's about consciousness. So look, Chorpie talked about it, Mvasekie talked about it, about our mindset, about being small America in Africa. That kind of mindset have undermined the progress of our country. We got generations of people who don't see outside of that. So guess what? They want to dress as Americans. They want to act as Americans. They want to do things as Americans. And all of those things have not rendered us in a better position. So what are we saying? If we were to change this name today, we'll be saving future generations from that kind of mindset, that kind of misguided mindset of tying yourself to a place that don't necessarily even want you. Because we take into consideration what is happening even in the United States right now. We're African Americans, we're black and brown people have been treated the way they have been treated. It is important for us to appreciate our Africanness. And one way to do it, one way to eliminate this stuff about us being that small America in Africa is by taking these very important steps. Changing the name of the capital city, Monrovia, getting down to changing the name of the school called Matilda Newport, getting down to changing the names of those streets all across Monrovia, and giving them names that reflect our African heritage, our African culture, and celebrate some of our African heroes, the Madam Swakoko.
Professor Zawolo, you just mentioned something that this thinking, this imaginary belief that some way, somehow we are like Americans. So let's agree that that is our idea, that is our thinking.
Mm-hmm.
America is the greatest country on earth. So if Liberians are thinking that they are Americans, they want to behave like Americans, they want to develop as Americans, then we should be in a much better place, right, than our African partners. Because if we look at some of them, they are doing as worse as we are. If we can agree that they are taking, more African than we are.
But they're doing much better culturally than we are doing. Mvasekie talked about our radio stations. Mm-hmm. Remember in the 70s when it was time to play an African song, we would stop and announce that we're about to play an African song. They play one. And then they come repeatedly and play Western music. Today, look at the international African artists. Which one of our Liberian artists is celebrated internationally as a top African artist? Which one? And why is it so? Because we are being indoctrinated that our own culture, our own music is not right. It's just quite reasoning that even churches are allowing drums to be beating in them because we're told that those were the sounds of the devil. Yeah, we were told that those things were the sounds of the devil. So what are we saying? We're saying, look, let's rid our society of this kind of mindset. And how do we do it? We go down deep into those things that have always marginalized our people and made our culture look ugly. Look, let me say something that is very embarrassing here on this air today. I don't speak Mano, my native language. Because my parents lived in places where they were made to understand that speaking African language was not the right thing to do. So they didn't give me that privilege of understanding my mother's tongue. And that embarrasses me up to today. And there's the same thing I've seen in our country. Look, giving the name of Monrovia to our city wasn't done by error. It was intentional. Every effort was made possible to rid of every aspect of our identity. They named our city Monrovia. They sent someone, according to them, called Mvasekie Anderson to go into our shrines and desecrate them. They had a woman they claimed to have executed scores of native men, not to show that they were powerful, but to show how weak our men were in their sense. And these things have left scars on our people for years, for generations. And we got to revisit these things to correct, so that our future generations will be able to appreciate their ancestors. We need more stories about Madam Swakoko. We need more stories about Chief Saboso and the rest of those people. So let me just stop here for my brother to go in.
And Chorpie, I have a question for you, and you can. My question here is, we have a lot of problems that you and I have been writing about for the past decade. Corruption. Augustus Tamari is telling clear that the greatest problem is bad leadership. We have our roads problem. Economy is in shambles. Why are we leaving those problems and doing name change? Isn't that kind of picking the lowest hanging fruit, or just leaving major stuff to concentrate on something that little? What do you think?
No. You see, and there's a problem. The vestiges, or I would say cliches, of colonial rule that is still present on our neck is stopping us from breathing in a way that we are unable to develop ourselves. And the name change, as we have said, if the discussion we are having now, just by because of the name change, we have discussed many things involved with linkage to name change. We have discussed governance, we have discussed culture, we have discussed our own civilization as a people, we discussed music. So the name change is not just about name change that will continue to echo here. The name change is a consciousness awakening that is able to inform us in a way that we're not clearly able to address all of these major problems. This is not to stop us from still talking about developing country, but at the same time, we want to address the fundamental. Now, I just want to piggyback on something Anthony about when you talk about going to our villages and they give us school. Now, if you look at that scenario, right, it is on a national consciousness level. If you went now to Liberia, the country as a whole, as a nation, we don't celebrate our Ghana now. If a Ghanaian chief comes out, if you see that Ghanaian chief going and walking, you will know that he owns the land. Even the government ministers, the president will all have respect for that Ghanaian chief. If you went to Nigeria, similar respect is accorded our traditional elders, our rulers. I will call that form of ancestral worship in Africa. If you look at America, and I will kind of comparison, even in the United States, they do what we call ancestral worship, but it's in a different form. Okay, if you look at American Constitution and discussing about America, the American Constitution, the Reverend School, the founding fathers of America. They talk about Washington, or Benjamin Franklin, all these people, to remind themselves of who they are, where they came from. Because if that founder is absent, you will not know where to move on. In Liberia, we don't have that base, we don't have that fundamental to look up to be able to build upon. And that's what we are talking about. Your foundation was crushed. So absent foundation, we are just swimming in mid-air. We are just swimming in mid-air. So we need to reconstruct foundation. We need to reconstruct our ancestral worship. I mean, ancestral worship, people look at ancestral worship to be like an evil thing. If you study the Bible, talk about the God of Abraham, Isaac, these ancestral worship. They worship the ancestor, Isaac, Abraham, Jacob, these ancestors of the Jewish people. In America, the ancestor making Franklin, some of all these people. Where is our own ancestor? Where is our ancestor? What have we learned from them? So the name change is very crucial, fundamental to our growth as a nation, both spiritually, both physically, uh, culturally, and in every aspect of our life as a society. So that's why makes it so critical for us to go back to that basic. Yes, we will not dismiss all these things. And I understand this criticism. This criticism again play into the same psychological or mindset that we have. We are being psychologically demoralized as a result of what happened in our country at the very beginning. So whenever we discuss it, some people don't even want to. It's a shame. There's a guilt. There's a guilt culture. There's a shame culture. Oh, what discuss that thing because it sounds so Asian of folks. Folks don't want to be associated with it because there's no proudness. That proudness is not there until we feel proud of our culture. Until we feel proud. The Nigerian is very proud of his culture. Ghanaian is proud of his culture. All African people are very proud. And if you look, even amongst African Americans, research show that African Americans, even though they have never been to Africa, but who are proud of their Africanness as an African American, they are more successful. The research show that those type of African Americans are more successful than those who just believe that their life began from an American plantation. And so they are just slave people. Africa, if you look at the continent of Africa, those countries who are still culturally conscious, they are advancing more than those other countries who are still stuck in colonial rule. So that's a distinction. Until we can address these psychological abuses, until we can address these challenges, we will continue to have this problem and will now move forward generation after generation, generation after generation. Cause for us doing something different this time around.
Thank you. Again, folks, in cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia. This is our prime time Sunday, and we are sitting with Chorpie Charlie, Mvasekie, Konneh, and Professor Axel Zawolo discussing should the name Monrovia be changed. They are saying yes, we should change it. Psychological, the labels have some kind of psychological impact on us, and we are asking them the tough question, and they're doing their best to respond. I will go to Mr. Dennis Jab for a few comments. Mr. Jab.
Yeah, let's get in our listeners here. Dennis Koti, he said the Pele and the Manon people call it, meaning Monrovia, Duko. I understand that the name Duko was given to indicate that it was situated near the Du River. Rosalind Venley say, are you going to change your American names too? He's asking me, are you going to change your name Dennis? Are you going to change your name Isaac? That's a question, and we have to answer that. Momodu Kanase is watching you live from George Weah Property. Oh, come on, man. Where is, all right. He says he's watching from George Weah Property called Liberia, where every looting and, okay, that's not relevant to what we are discussing, so we skip that. Right. Augustine Tamba, we Africans must learn how to build our continent right from our mind to action. It's unfortunate that we feel the pain we don't feel Boko Haram in Nigeria, or white men rebels in Congo, or police brutality in our own land. This is what we call qualified stupidity, if not foolish. Our focus for influence needs to start from home, inside me and you, not outside far in the foreign land. This kind of mindset characterizes the feeling of understanding what matters more to us. That's why we enemy to ourselves. Dennis Cotis also said we have to start from somewhere, and I think the changes will be the beginning of correcting history.
Yes.
Tamba Sele Odu say, can you change your kids' names 2. The greatest and only problem of Liberia is bad leadership, not the people, not the resources, but bad leadership. Rosalind Vanley also said, "Yo, please leave Monrovia alone, man. Maybe relocate the capital and name it to your traditional name and leave Monrovia alone." Gongwen Da said, "We were misled and misdirected by our founding fathers. We need to regain independence. How can a Liberian man's surname be Johnson, Smith, and so on?" Christopher A. Kamara, first thing, we Liberian needs to recognize our culture. Benjamin Jonah, I want to challenge these guys in the studio. Benjamin want to challenge you guys in the studio. He doesn't want a name change, I guess. Christopher A. Kamara, Liberia does not have belonging. We are just fooling ourselves. We got nothing with America. And Edward Amara, our West African correspondent, is saying hello to all of you guys. And Jimmy Isma said, "It is tragic that a child was kept from learning their tribal language. We should be proud of who we are and not let white supremacy shame us in denying our heritage." The last one for now is from Fanja Basakai. "We need to restart Liberia and get rid of our past because it is not progressive."
And Mr. John, let me read this one from Christopher A. Kamara. "Our people were full, and we are still following the same footsteps controlled by our so-called educated leaders." Yep, that one will do it, and then we'll come back to our
one more. Edward Amara said, "Changing the name of the capital without changing the characters, attitudes of the citizens is no solution to Liberia's current predicament." And he's going forward to name tribalism, corruption, nepotism, illiteracy are the problems of Liberia. James, John, Edward, Dennis are not African names, but Western names. However, people bearing these names are not misbehaving because of the names. They are bearing rather, if they misbehave badly, then it is because of the society they are living in. That's our West African correspondent, Edward Amara, giving you some piece of his mind.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis, for reading those comments. Gentlemen, very soon we'll be going to our phone line. Dennis asked a question earlier. I was like, let's keep that one. Mvasekie answered it by saying, we start from Monrovia. Now we start from Monrovia. Guys, this is your challenge. Resources will be involved, and it can't stop with Monrovia. It will continue all the way to all our counties, all the streets. So how do we do that? Should we spend that money? Would that be money well spent in changing the names of all these streets and towns and cities? Or can we put that money into education and teach our people the Africanness, the Liberianness that you want to see, and that will remain in them to change the country for the better? What do you want?
I think we can do both.
Okay.
I think we can do both. I think we continue to educate our people. That's what some of us are doing. Whenever we have the opportunity to speak to young people, we remind them of the culture and the heritage and our ancestors, the contributions they've made towards the country we call Liberia today, and knowledge which I was able to get our parents, Dennis, Anthony, every one of you guys here. We come from traditional backgrounds, native backgrounds, where our forefathers, our ancestors taught our people how to care for themselves. And they lived to be 90 years, 100 years by, experiential living, knowing their culture, knowing the different trees in the forest and everything in the bush that they could use for different things. So we're going to continue to do all those things, and all of those things are going to be happening. But equally so, we believe it is equally important to correct the errors of history. And so we must change the names of those of national monuments, of cities and towns that reflect the ugliness of those who, so to speak, established Liberia. And prominent among those things would be the name of our city, Monrovia. We have to seriously consider our flag, what it really represents truly our country. We have to seriously consider our national motto, what it represents truly our country. I don't know whether my forefathers were brought to Liberia by the law of liberty. I don't know whether they were brought to Liberia. I know they were there. We have to also going to looking at other cities, Greenville, Harper, and different other places. I don't know whether you would like me to change Harper City name, but we're going to get into all of those things. All of those things affect our psyche, our consciousness. And so correcting them will not solve all of Liberia's problems. But you don't solve all the nation's problems all at once. You begin to solve the problems you can solve and then moving along. It was also indicated here that there was a commission, the Symbols Review Commission, that was organized to do this work. I don't think they completed their work. And I know for sure there was a $1.5 million funding for that commission. I think it's important for us to go back and see if there's any one of that funding still left over, because the commission did not finish its work. I know for sure they did not finish their work, because at some point I was involved, at some point we're helping them organize some of the meetings they did in the United States here. So I think, no matter the cost, I think the value, the importance trumps the cost. And so this is something we must be doing. I mean, you see it happening all over the world. One of the things that really surprises me is that some of the people who are criticizing us for calling for this name change are some of the very ones who believe that Andrew Jackson's statue must come down in the United States. But then when it comes to Liberia, we must live in status quo. And it's an irony, Let me stop there.
Let me ask this question, and then we can go to our callers.
Yeah.
Mvasekie, you can come to that. The question here is sometimes which become like the elephant in the room is this issue of country Congo, that some of these names, when you change them, you are trying to kind of erase the contribution of certain segment of our population. That's American Liberians that conquer. So I have read, since this argument started, that hey, you are trying to, this was named after someone who was American Liberian. Now you are trying to change that. How do you think the American Liberian going to feel about it? So how do you walk that fine line of not alienating other fellow citizens, and at the same time keeping that history and also righting the wrongs of history?
How did American Liberians feel about us celebrating Material Nipo Day?
I don't think they
How did they feel about us celebrating Pioneers Day?
Thank you.
I felt insulted. I felt violated. And that is why those holidays were wiped away. So look, this is not about Congo against country. This is not about wiping away the contributions of American Liberia. It's about putting things in the right perspective. There are many American Liberians who contributed immensely to our country. We encourage us, if there are things in name of that were being named after those people, we encourage that those things remain the same. But those aspects that bring awful reminders, like naming a capital city of Africa, what we call Africa First Republic, after a man who was entrenched in slavery. This was the president who, in fact, accepted Missouri, and to keep it as a slave state. James Monroe. I think it's important for us to change that. If we look at the history of President Monroe, I think it's important that we save our country, our capital city, that embarrassment of being named after a person who did not respect human dignity.
Yeah, and that's why I was asking, where do we start? Because a person like Judy Ashman, we have Ashman Street.
Let me attempt to answer that question.
Yeah, and without, okay, yeah. So what I'm adding there, the other layer is people like Judy Ashman. There's Ashman Street. Some people will say, let's change it. But Judy Ashman has made immense contribution to Liberia. Go ahead, Chorpie.
Yeah, I think again, a reminder of why it is so critical for us to discuss this and change, because it envelopes a lot of historical issues we are, or most of us are unaware of. The reality here is that people are quote unquote Liberians who even came to Liberia during our era. They were not even part of the decision making that involved this naming of the country. If you look at the composition of the people who governed Liberia at that particular time, Liberia was governed by the colonial masters, a man like Judy Ashman, who was governor of Liberia. He was not a Black American. He was not a former slave. the people who funded the ACS, who were governing Liberia, made a decision independent of those people they brought to Liberia. And if you look at the immediate rulers of Liberia, George Rao was never a slave. He was born as a free man. He was not born as a slave person. He was not born into slavery. These people, most of the ACs or leaders, had illegitimate children. And it was the children when they came to Liberia who they made ruler over the other people who were slaves on the plantation. So if you look at that history during that period, you will find that there were revolt by our indigenous people, the tribal people who were fighting against the colonial power. Even some of those slaves, those Americans, joined with the tribal people to fight against those indigenous people because the mindset that some of those slaves came with, those slaves came with, was they were coming to be free, not to be governed against the same plantation masters. One of those fights in Africa, again under the same control, the same colonial masters. So if you read letters of Lakere, that letter is very important. Like one of those persons who was very angry with Hitler Ashmore by Ashmore using very brutal force. Most of those land that were acquired, like Crochet Bay, for Ginger, Addington, most of these land were acquired to Hitler Ashmore used vow to take those land. Those land were not given freely. He used vow and what's his name? Lakere was so angry that Lakere wrote many letters to the Baptist Church in America, and he was complaining about the behavior of Judah Ashmore and even other black who was Americans or former Liberians who were in Liberia. So there's not a holistic approach down there. So I tell you today, similarly as any African American who was slavery back then, even America are revolting against this Confederate and this slave structure. Similarly, I'm convinced that most Liberians, and we have seen some of the writing, are also displeased and unhappy by the drug abuse that melted us against not just our own indigenous people, but against themselves when they were in Liberia. If you're in Liberia, look in the cement. They quote unquote, as we call it, Konneh settlement, whatever, and some of the poorest undeveloped places in Liberia. Go to any congressman today in Liberia, even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, they are some of the most backward places in Liberia. They are underdeveloped. Poverty is striking in those places. Only few elites were one down in Monrovia was enjoying the wealth country while the rest of the people suffer and wallop in poverty. So I think, like a better Mvasekie said, or the Pan-African spirit is what we should really use to move this movement forward because while it is true that the reasoning of the colonial power that brought those brothers to Liberia was not because they wanted those brothers to be free. They brought those brothers to Africa because they were afraid of the going revolt on the slave plantation. If you read some of the abolitionists or writings during the period, some of the abolitionists were angry that they were taken back to Africa because they felt these people have won America, they have worked on plantation, they have built a plantation. Why are you sending back? But people in Maroon and Clay and some people felt that look, these people are growing in strength in America. If we keep them here, they will one day revolt against us as we are seeing in tea, as we are seeing other plantations. So they say, let's kick the people back to Africa where they belong so that they cannot overpower us here in America. That was the reason of taking these people back to Africa. They felt that they could use Liberia as a farm land, but they were still using people to work on their plantation in Africa and take the goods, take our gold, diamonds, because, I mean, and they're still doing it up to this day. So we still have an opportunity here. I wouldn't want to pick a raw brush against America, Liberia. Similarly, even most of our indigenous friends, if you look at our very history again, we talk about, you will see that some of our indigenous friends join with the oppressor to fight against their own people. So there is now one size fits all. We just have to join, like Malcolm X would say, I don't care if you are white or you are black, if you believe in freedom, you believe in justice, and you want to join me to fight the oppressor, I welcome you. So this struggle for reworking our consciousness, for moving our country forward. We don't care whether you're American Liberian, we don't care whether you're indigenous. If you believe in our cause, you believe in justice, you believe in national development, we welcome you to join us in this fight.
Thank you.
On that note, let's bring in our callers. What do you think, Asuni?
Yeah, let's go for it. And Mvasekie, get ready for to respond to our callers.
No problem. I'm here.
Jim Eastman, you'll be the first one.
Yes, hello. I'm enjoying the show, and I really appreciate your guests, Mr. Zawolo, Mr. Charlie, and Mr. Konneh. It's a good topic, but I believe that the question here is not so much a changing of the name, but more is what is our identity? Because I think that is because tomorrow, Ja, if we change your name from Ja, we'll call you Paul, you will still be who you are. So changing the name does not change. But what we're searching is an identity. And we want our identity to reflect our reality. We are Africans. And we want our identity to reflect that of Africa, not that of some foreign name. We have to admit there's been centuries and centuries of white supremacy that has infiltrated our thoughts and our forefathers' thoughts, that it will be very challenging to remove. It's going to take a while. But one of the first things, if we want to find our identity, what is identity? I mean, it could be our skills, our culture, our ethnicity, all these things make up your identity. So one thing to do is to know our history. First, what is our history? Who were we? Let's say there were no slave ships coming and taking us from here or bringing us back here or whatever. Let's look at the kingdoms of Ghana. They call the kingdom of Ghana started away 600 BC. 600 AD. The kingdom of Ghana doesn't even touch where Ghana is today. The kingdom of Ghana is more closer to where Mali is today. Then the kingdom of Songhai, the kingdom of Mali, the kingdom of Benin is where Nigeria is. We need to know who we are. And once we look in our history and know who we are, then we can start defining ourselves. But our identity of a people is the same, similar culture, similar language. It could be religion. It could be values and beliefs. I think values and beliefs is very, very binding because that is telling us where we want to go as a people, what we want to be as a people. So for me, this question of changing names, is what is our identity? And I heard the brother Zawolo talking. He was denied learning his tribal language. That is a direct reflection of the extent of white supremacy, because those who were denied, they were already also influenced by that. Whereas my father's coming up, he spoke better. We were in the upriver group, and we spoke he spoke better, Bassa, he spoke language. Why would anyone deny their heritage? Is because someone telling them is not good. So we have a lot to liberate our minds from. Okay, but this changing the name, let it be more significant just changing the name. Let us identify in us and re-identify, and we should identify where we want to go as a people. Who are we as Liberians? What is our common thing?
Thank you.
But the name, is one thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You spoke well. Let's bring in Professor Larry Davis. Professor, welcome.
Yes, good afternoon, Dennis. Yes, good afternoon, Dennis, and you're in the group. How are you?
Hello, Professor Larry.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. You're live.
Yes, can you guys hear me okay? Okay, great. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Fantastic conversation. And I wanted to say that I think that Liberia perhaps have bigger fish to fry than name change. However, I do understand what people want to do. And listen, I've read some of the works of Dr. Carl Patrick Burroughs, and before the formation of Liberia, there really wasn't a unified population there. And I think what did happen is that when African Americans and West Indians did come, they came as a unified population. Now, I'll tell you what I mean by that. I like to tell friends of mine all the time that probably the first truly African people really are the Black diasporas, because what happened with those folks in the New World is that they merged into a new culture, into a single culture. And so when they got back to West Africa, they were able to kind of build and develop. And I think also, too, that their footprint across what we now call Liberia is permanent. I want to say this one last thing, and I'll go here. You know, I was just reading today about the influence of those people who came, the settlers who actually established Liberia. One of the beautiful things that they did under President Tubman is that they created the draft charter for what we now call the OAU. So what they did is that they unified the African continent with creating a charter for the AU right now, as we see it today, is the result of what Liberia did. So that's my comment, gentlemen. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. Mvasekie, please respond to the contribution from the callers, and then we will go to Benjamin Jonah, the guy who said he wanted to challenge you guys. So let's give Benjamin Jonah a little bit. Mvasekie.
Okay.
Well, what I want to say to Professor Lawrence Davis is that if he says there was nothing there before the settlers came, which is the same thing as saying there was before the European came. European came and conquered the Native American and established their regime over here. Does that mean the indigenous people in America didn't have anything? Of course we had a problem. What we had, there was nation upon nation. Nation was being defined by ethnicity at that time. But there was cordiality. Just the people everywhere, they fought, but there was a lot of cordiality. The whole thing we're talking about here is the culture. You know, a few years ago, I was in Liberia, and I challenged someone on the radio. I said, from 1847 up to now, tell me if Liberia has produced any famous individual outside of politics that has gone on to shine in Africa, to shine in the world. Nobody could say it. That person, the only person we have produced in the entire existence of Liberia that has made us proud who we are is Josh Weah, who is the president today. I'm not talking about the political Josh Weah, but at least the one famous person from Liberia outside of politics that made us proud as Liberians is Josh Weah. When it comes to literature, when it comes to music, when it comes to a whole lot of different things, the Ivorians have done better than us, Nigerians have done better than us, Guineans have done better than us. The reason that happened is because they are musicians, they are literary figures, they focus on their culture, their indigenous culture. They promoted that to the extent where all over Africa today, you talk about Kamaralai, everybody knows he did a great literary work in Guinea. Where is our literary people that are recognized outside of Liberia, recognized everywhere in the world? Where is our musicians that are recognized not only in Liberia, but all over Africa and the rest of the world? When you talk about Fela Nicola Pokuti today from Nigeria, he's respected everywhere in the world. We don't have anything like that. The reason we are lagging behind everybody of fighting over politics is because of the way we started. Because you can never develop any nation if you don't have a strong sense of culture. Literature has to talk about your culture. Your culture gives birth to your literature. Your culture gives birth to your music. Your culture gives birth to your fashion. So if we are not competing with our fellow Africans in any other of this area, it simply means that we were debased from the very beginning, because we're trying to be what we're not, and we couldn't be what we're supposed to be. Yeah. So the fact that people are talking about today, about job and all these things, none of these things should have been the issue here. If we are starting a nation based on true value, true culture of the people, we would have been the #1 country today in the world in so many areas. When it comes to music, we should have been #1. When it comes to literature, we should have been #1. But if the culture cannot feed the music, the culture cannot feed the literature, the culture cannot feed the political system, then you have an imbalance that has to be corrected. That's the issue here.
And Dennis and Anthony, Mvasekie laid it out, and Mr. Jimmy Ismail also laid it out. So it's very clear. This is not just about name change. It's about identity, the consciousness. Look, culture, the way we do things, the food we eat, how we call ourselves, all of those are part of our identity. So the name changing thing is not a small thing, it's a big issue. But I also wanted to make a comment concerning the assertions here of Professor Larry Davis. I know Professor Davis. I appreciate his interest in Liberia. He's read a lot about Liberia. But I've always told Professor David that some of the narrative he's had about Liberia are faulty. And tonight, I think he provided some information here again that was very much impactful. We had established cultures in Liberia, in a place called Liberia, prior to the arrival of the settlers. What Professor Davis has been fed is a narrative of certain individuals that have tried to deny the value and the culture of our people. So I do understand that he's been fed, he's speaking based on what he's read and what he knows. And he quoted here Professor Burroughs. Professor Burroughs is a very fine man. He's made a lot of effort to show the contribution of people from the West Indies to the history of Liberia. I know there were some people from the West Indies that made some contribution to our own history in Liberia. But the extent to which people like Professor Burroughs and some of the others have tried to elevate them it doesn't align with the fact. So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, our people had established systems of governance. The very same people who wrote the ugly narrative of our history, they reference chiefs. Chiefs could not be leaders if there were no established governance structure. So our people are very much established. Okay, so let's dismiss some of those things. So I guess one of those points I wanted to point out here quickly before you take other questions.
Thank you.
All right, let me just add this to it too for Professor Larry Davis. Why African American are called African American today? They used to be called at some point Negro. They used to be called colored people. They used to be called a whole lot of different names. But you know why they changed their name to African American now? It was the conscious effort of the Black nationalist movement in America. One of the chief propagandists for that was Malcolm X and a lot of other people, the Black Art movement, the Black Panther, all of these people, they struggle to change the name, the way Black people are identified in America. So today we say African American. That didn't come from the blue sky. It was something other people saw that we wanted to align ourselves with African culture. Because before the Black nationalist movement of the 1920s that inspired Harlem Renaissance, and the Black nationalist movement that inspired the Black Art movement in the 60s and the 70s, many African Americans used to be ashamed to even identify with Africa. Malcolm X used to say, how can you say you love the tree, the fruit, you don't love the root? You cannot be yourself until you identify with Africa. That is the reason the name changed from colored people, from Negro, and now we have African American today. That is because they wanted to feel a sense of belonging. They felt like if you don't have a strong sense of identity of who you are, you're not going to make progress. That's the reason we moved from Negro, from colored people, now we have African American. If the identity was not important, Malcolm X was not going to spend a whole lifetime talking about identifying with Africa. W.E.B. Du Bois was not going to undertake historical research to bring about the connection between African American and African. There are a lot of African Americans that have struggled for years to establish Black study, African study in colleges and universities in America. It is because of this great sense of cultural value they see in Africa. Why Liberia cannot be part of this? We should be asking ourselves, if Black people in America can rediscover their Africanness, then we sitting there in Africa, in Liberia, we still see ourselves as an American. Do we see ourselves as part of the African American culture or the typical white supremacy culture in America? That's the question we should be asking ourselves.
Thank you,
All right.
Vasiki. Mr. Jal, let's go to this caller or Jonan, and then we'll allow Choppy to respond. Uh, Benjamin Jonan, you say you wanted to challenge these well-mannered
Yeah.
gentlemen quickly to the issue.
No, that was just a joke. But anyway, thanks for having me.
All right.
So I will turn to agree with Professor Lyra Davis. First of all, I mean he said most of what I want to say, but now here is my major point that I want to stress. First of all, Liberia is a unique case. Liberia is not most of other African countries. Liberia is unique in itself. And I have seen a lot of what most of the panelists have been saying. They have given a lot of illustration with regards to other African countries like Ghana, and they went to East Africa and they named all of those countries. There's a huge difference between those countries and Liberia. Let's go to East Africa. In East Africa, the white man's footprint was still on the continent. So there was a reason why the black man wanted to have a complete distinction. When you go to Ghana, Ghana already had Ghana came from the empire, so they already had an established history. When you come now to Liberia, our entire history of Liberia started from 1847 when the slaves first arrived on the shores of Liberia. Now, you you might think that we as Liberians, well, you might want to find out why is it now people are asking for these names to be changed. And I think the name change is not going to do anything, absolutely nothing. And the reason
Okay.
is that if you change a man's name, that does not change his attitude. He still remains that person.
Thank you, Ben.
All right.
All right.
Let's
Yeah.
take one more, Dennis, then Choppy can respond. Let's take this.
Just hold on. I got a caller on my personal line
Okay.
because people are asking for the WhatsApp number and others are calling this number. So let's take caller your name and where you calling from.
My name is Jackie Sai. I'm calling from upstate New York.
Panelists, can you hear Jackie?
Yeah, very clearly.
Go ahead, Jackie. Jackie Sai from upstate New York. Your comments or question?
Okay, thank you so much for this topic. It's one that I've been writing about and I'm very interested. I wholeheartedly agree that we have to have a discussion about the name Monrovia. We cannot have a country called Liberia, land of the free, and have a capital city named after a slave owner. Now, for Mr. Larry Davis, who talks about that the free slaves or the American Liberians, when they came and settled, they created a unified Liberia. I don't know if he knows that the first constitution that was written by the so-called American Liberians, they give citizenship to every black person in the United States, but denied it to indigenous Liberians. Indigenous Liberians did not get the right to vote until 100 years after the independence of Liberia. So when he's talking, we should say that there's a deep social significance and it should be a collective discussion. We should talk about what this worldview means when we say we are Liberians from Monrovia. If it's Monrovia, fine. But let every group, indigenous and American Liberians, have that discussion. We, the indigenous people, were not given a choice. Monrovia was imposed on them. So I see no reason why we should embrace this name, given the fact that other people, other African people around the world are trying to discover their identity through names. Names are significant. Names give you your identity. It is a part of a collective identity. Or else Ghana wouldn't change its name, Mali wouldn't change its name, Burkina Faso, Zaire, Zimbabwe, Malawi. So I agree with some of the people on that nation was defined by ethnicity at the time, but I do feel that this conflict that we have about who are we as a people, we are in limbo. There is no defined identity, because when we go to other African countries, they say, oh, Petit Liberia, Petit America. No, we're not Petit America. That flag that we have is a bastardized version of the American flag. We need new names. We need to take pride in who we are. And that comes with a frank discussion of our identity, and it also comes with a frank discussion of how we came to be. We were there. There were people in Liberia before the settlers came, and we have to have that identity as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
All right. Then let's bring in this caller from my state of Minnesota. Caller with phone number
Hello.
ending in 8818. Quickly.
That's me. My name is Samuel Vancier. Actually, I'm a minister and a pastor, and I have written 1 or 2 articles in the Daily Observer before.
Mm-hmm.
However, what I want to contribute is this: change of name is a normal thing, is natural. Not because someone gave you a name for your birth name, that would be your name forever. So I don't see there'll be any major problem with that. And I agree with the lady who just spoke. When the pioneers came, initially, our people, the native people, were not included in any of those decisions that were made. Constitution, naming, forming of government. Those were done later on, about 100 years after. And I also think that it's true that to some extent, to a large extent, the contribution of the native were suppressed. I was just reading just last week about why Marcus Garvey, his project to empower the native was aborted. It's because the ruling power at that time, they didn't want him to do that. So what I'm saying is that there's a reason for all of what you guys are saying, and I see a lot of truth to it. However, being like what it is now, we have to button blow and also respect some of the or a lot of the contributions also that the pioneers made, and not to forget that altogether. And one thing before I just hang up is this: I was listening to the American Renaissance just 2 weeks ago, and it was a production of an American organization, historical organization. They mentioned James Monroe and they mentioned Monrovia, and they wonder why in the world would a country in Africa, Liberia, that was founded on for free people, would name their capital after James Monroe. And that thing hit me really hard. Even the Americans know that it was maybe not appropriate to do that. So I stop there, gentlemen. Thank you.
All right.
What's your name again?
Yeah, Mr. Jal, let's bring in this
I was asking for the first name.
Aliyu Kamara.
Oh, hold on. The caller just spoke. What's your name?
Oh, Pastor Samuel E. Vancier from Minnesota.
Oh, Samuel Dacier. Thank you.
Vancier.
Oh, Vancier. Thank you.
I spelled V like Victor, A like Uncle, N like Nancy, S I like India, E like Eddie.
I got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Aliyu, quickly to the issue, my man. You like this particular subject? We brought it for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. My body is hot. You know, this particular issue is heartfelt for me. For me, it's an emotional issue. You know, well, somebody come up here and say that Liberia never had history up to the coming of the descendants of the slaves. That person should not be speaking. That means they don't understand or know anything about Liberia. You know, what baffles and frustrates me also is when a descendant of a slave comes on international media, so to speak, to defend the name and the background of their slave masters or their former slave masters, it also hurts. Look, let us call a spade a spade. Liberia had a unique leadership ability among the tribal people. Every segment of Liberia was controlled by kings, and each king respected the other. God Grey did not easily cross onto the side of King Charles Bosso. They had truce whenever there was war. They negotiated dialogue, and they had ceasefire. They had economic system running through their territories. So for someone to say there was no leadership and nothing in Liberia, see when I get to this kind of stuff, it hits me so hard how I can't compose myself to really give the kind of historical facts that I needed for this kind of program. Because think about it, guys. It's crazy how people come and settle in Monrovia County and make decisions for the entire country, leaving out the majority, about 99% of the population. And somebody wants to say that whatever decision they made then must stand. I am of the strong conviction. We had two names in Monrovia, but there were two dominant tribes in Monrovia, the place called Monrovia now. There were the Pella people and the Bassa people. And they had two names. The Pella people referred to that place now called Monrovia as Dugbo. I mean Duko, while the Bassa people refer to it as Dugbo. We have to have a referendum and choose that particular Monrovia to either Duko or Dugbo, because that's how our people back in the day preferred it to be. So there are lots of stuff here that Dr. Larry, I love Dr. Larry because he's very, very much into his business. But one of the president said, he is not getting the whole story. Imagine Dr. Larry's story in the United States. Booker T. Washington, Rosa Parks. And this is not Dr. Larry's history. Dr. Larry needs to know what his actual history is. This is American history. So until they really dig and find out themselves, they'll frustrate some of us because we know them better than they know themselves. You cannot defend your oppressor. Whether or not there is something that call your oppressor former oppressor, look at America today. You are still slave in many different respects. How can you keep on come up here and make statement that identity does not matter? Identity means everything in order to unify a country. First of all, you got to identify who you are. You got to identify where you belong. Before you can begin to put those systems in place that take you further. We need to go back to the drawing board up to 1616. Back then, what was happening then? What did the people believe then? We can go back to our history. Pick out some of those artifacts that were literally destroyed or annihilated by the former slave or descendants of the former slave. We got to go back. We got to change everything. Even streets in Monrovia. Who is Kerry? Who is Benson? Who is Johnson? Who is Matela Nibo? Who are these people? How can we have things that represent us and we don't even know what they are about?
Thank you, Ali.
Ali is on fire right there. Mr. Jai, you want us to take the last caller?
Yeah, let's take the last caller. We have some more comments coming.
All right.
Last caller, 2346, you're live. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead. You're live. Your name and where you calling from?
Yeah. Oh, this is Dennis Coty. I am calling from North Dakota. Thank you for this particular panel today. I am so highly delighted for some of these kind of arguments to come up. But you see, this argument sounds more like, or it rather advances the argument of the establishment of a war or an economic transport in Liberia, which others I continue to be against up to this point. But that is not what we are here for today. The change of name of the name Monrovia to a local name, I think it will tremendously contribute to the reconciliation process that we have longed for all along. I think it will begin to put momentum into that discussion. If we really want true reconciliation in this country since the war, this is one of the areas that we should start from. I think so. Some of those callers were arguing on little points like why some of us have our Western names today. We will begin to change it. Hey, look, let me tell you this. Some of the names that we have in our country today, we were given those names because of what I will refer to as protective resemblance. That is, when you are in a situation where there is no way you want to resemble the people that are in a system to help you out. Those days, if you were called or Yakawulu, for example, to go apply for a job, and then somebody called Johnson go apply for a job, guess who they will look at in the first place? Even school. So these things, they are very, very important. We need to take it into serious consideration today. Those who I say, in fact, I can clearly tell you that in 1980, when Doe took over, there were a lot of those people, those indigenous people who changed their name from the name that were given to them by the American Liberians. You know, so this is very important. It is an argument that I think this is where we should start from to advance the argument of reconciliation that has not properly been done. Okay, so that's my little 2 cents that I can add to that. I think it is very, very important. This is going to help us a lot, and I thank you guys again for organizing this particular discussion.
Thank you, Dennis. Now we have more comments, but Chorpie, you want to go first on this to respond to the callers?
Yeah. Let me take start. Again, I may say thanks to all of the callers. I think everybody's point was very valuable and informative. 2 specific issues or 2 callers really caught my attention. I think it is the first caller. Is it Professor Larry? Yeah. He struck a very important point, but similarly, I think one of the contradict. He talked about identity, which is very critical. And the first thing when it comes to identity is your name. That's the first identification for anything, a person, place, or thing. You know, you first got to know the name of that thing. That names, more or less, tell you, just for the name alone, even derive the composition or the makeup of that thing. If somebody calls Johnson, the natural inclination will not be an African person. You would think that person is of an American background stock. Somebody called in Zawolo, you instantly know that that person is of African traditional stock. So the name, that in terms of identification, as he correctly put it, it will begin with a name. Everything on earth has a name. Even the trees, they got different plum tree, almond tree, cars and all got name. You know, Cherokee, they got different, even Jeep, they got different type of Jeep. Cherokee Jeep, this other Jeep, that other Jeep. So name is very critical to the whole contour of identification. And that's why I want to begin this identification process from the name, and then we can initiate a cultural revolution that transform. Then I let it come to the last caller. First and the last caller. Last caller struck again a very fundamental point of reconciliation. We cannot reconcile ourselves in our country if we continue to live in a mythical kingdom of falsehood. Because we'll always have this country conquer, divide, debate in our country. We'll always have a suspicion of one another if we cannot reconcile the original sin, which was not even caused by none of us. Again, like I said, our brothers who were brought from America as former slaves, they themselves were even victims of the situation that happened in Liberia when you have white governance or imposing their will on our people. When you have a white military ruler or Lieutenant Robert Stockton holding our king, our traditional king, at gunpoint with a pistol and forcing the land from him. So the slave didn't have power to do that stuff. They didn't have a gunboat. They didn't have a military, U.S. military gunboat. So we have to reconcile ourselves. And that reconciliation can only take place when we recognize that there was a wrong done and we attempt to correct that. And that place to begin is the capital city of Monrovia. Why it is critical? People say, why Monrovia? Because that's a capital, that's a place, that's a seat. That's where all of our decision making in the country evolves. That's a seat of government. That's where every decision that affects every other part of the country begins. So where else can we begin but Monrovia? Where else? Monrovia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me bring in some major, from what I've been reading to what I see also here has some major argument against what you are saying. One of it came from former Finance Minister, Mr. Konneh, who said, and I want to summarize that, for example, the war in Liberia was caused not because we had a different name or the name Monrovia, or because we had the name of Ashmore Street, right? He said the major issues are tribalism. We had it became a tribal war that people were forming Loma Defense Force, Ulimoke, all these were all fought on tribal lines. So the name Monrovia did not kill anybody, but tribalism killed somebody. Another one, Edward Amara again say you can use the money that you're going to use on that name and identify some projects that you can do. Another one that I read from Sando Konneh. Sando said you can talk about the Monrovia name change, but when it comes to the street, these people actually build the place and give it a name and give it a street name from what they have built. Another comment said, hey, the people build their Monrovia and give it the name Monrovia. If you want your own city and you want to name it whatever, go build your own. And last but not the least, when we put this out, there's a comment from Mr. Ijoma Flemister. This is what he said. He said, I don't care whatever renaming is done. I don't care. My position is that Liberia needs a new capital city. That's his thing. Why worry about this Monrovia that's so overcrowded? You can even notice it. Why not be like Abuja? So those are some of the comments and some of the criticism. Isaac, you want to start?
Yeah, but let me just talk about Professor Minister's comment.
Okay, all right. Let me stop, and then Zaka will follow up. You cannot look.
Go.
1 plus 1 will always give you 2. I don't care how many times you add 1 plus 1, you will still get 2. We have been doing project in Liberia with Konneh. If it is project development or project formation, then Liberia will be a developed country. So the project doing has not been a solution to our problem, because we have been doing projects in the country. So in the country with Konneh. So that argument is mute and dumb to argue that let's go and do projects, because we've been doing projects. The argument that let's go and build a new capital. Yes, we can build a capital, but what mindset are we carrying to build our new capital? Are we carrying the same mindset that we have from the old capital? If that same mindset, that same abused, depraved, psychological mindset we're carrying to build a new capital, then we're not making no transformation. We are just transferring the same bad behavior to another place. So we need to first get in a proper frame of mind before we can go and transform to a better capital. We can't carry that same bad behavior elsewhere. Talking about the war, not tribal. The war was tribal. I disagree with the idea that Liberia war was not tribal. Liberia war was never tribal. Yes, tribalism took part in the war. Tribalism showed its ugly face during the war. But the causes of the war was not tribal. The cause of the war was a power struggle, was dominance. Few people dominating other people. And it evolved from the very history we're talking about. That long over abuse. It is because of the dominance by a few people or a lot of people that caused us to be in this place that led to that war. If that dominance over a century did not take place, we wouldn't have even talked about war in the first place. So the war is not a cause, it's a symptom of what happened after the war came up. Local defense force were not formed at the beginning of the war. Local defense force came later on. Now defense force came later on. So they were not causes of the war. So that argument in itself is false and mythical, and it has no foundation to stand on. All right. So again, we come back to the fundamental. Until we can address the fundamental and to run away from these fundamental issues and try to dance the Santa Claus, and pretend that we can solve the problem when we have tried all of these other questions. We have even gone to murder one another. It didn't solve our problem because we're missing something. Why we are not solving our problem in Liberia? Because we're missing something very fundamental. We are running away from the real problem. We do not want to address the shame. We do not want to address the guilt. We do not want to address the abuse that was planted at that very foundation of the country. Until we address that abuse, until we address that hurt, until we address that wound, we will only be lying at that horse.
Thank you. Isaac?
Yeah, Zawolo can continue.
I think Chorpie basically clearly answered most of the things I wanted to talk about, especially was to dismiss that argument that the Liberian Civil War was a tribal war. That is something I've always told people. It never came, it wasn't a tribal war. It may have morphed into a tribal war at some point. But again, the problems of our country is rooted in the fact that we do not want to address those issues, those errors that were made in the very establishment of our country. The marginalization of a certain sector of our population, the promotion of certain styles and ways of life on the majority of the people, which have led, like Mvasekie stressed repeatedly, which have led to us not being able to get on the international stage when it comes to culture, music, literature, and the rest of it. Our writings were thought to be supporting some devil worship, and so we're not encouraged to celebrate those aspects of our culture. But let me just say, one of the callers was concerned about being put in my head. Now, one of the things I've been doing is that I've been trying to read a lot of the comments to be able to adequately respond. And I apologize for you feeling that way, that I'm showing any disrespect. It's not a disrespect. But let me add something here. Look, I've seen that what we've done here tonight and what we are doing here tonight resonate a lot with a whole lot of people. And so what we want to do also, before you even give us a chance to provide our closing words, is to encourage people to join the movement. This movement is not just for us. It's not just about us. It's about all Liberians. To join the movement so that we all can collectively engage in the kind of discussions that we need to engage in. Perhaps, maybe for now, those of us who are saying that we should change the name Monrovia, maybe others will come who will outnumber us and say maybe Monrovia, the need to change of the name Monrovia is not the most important thing. It might be that we need to change the name Liberia. Or they might say that maybe it's a need to change the streets and the rest of it. But there's an opportunity for us to, engage and have these kind of discussions now, because these are very, very much things that are very, very much important to the forward march of our country. So, I want to encourage people to join the movement. Mvasekie will provide, I know further down the road, he will provide, ways that you can be part of this movement. But this is for all of us. Come on, let's join, let's talk, let's disagree. I just wanted to say one thing about one of the callers. I think he made a very good point. But I do not agree with his point when he says that our history is not the history of Professor Larry Davis. Professor Larry Davis is one of those African American individuals who is fully much interested in our history, our culture, and our tradition. I think it makes sense for us to encourage him to do so, and along the way continue to provide him some enlightenment about those areas in which his views doesn't align with the facts. So, Professor Davis, let me apologize on behalf of that caller and encourage you to continue to study our history. Join us, and we'll continue to give you the information that you need.
It's important that you say that. Mvasekie, maybe let me ask you a question, then you can. Now, one big question here is the name change and all the things that you have named. From my reading, these things, they were intentional, and most of you have said it, right? And one of those things that had its root in it is our governance structure, where Monrovia is the center of authority. So if we want to approach name change and all the little things, why don't we take it from the standpoint of restructure or redefining or kind of working on our governance structure. Because if we have a centralized system in Monrovia where few people sit there and rule over the rest of the world, so maybe that's a better place to change from. Some call it decentralization. And if that takes power away from few people in Monrovia, people in Cabocan or they are in Fisibu or they in Glay in Niba County, they are able to take decision where they are instead of waiting for the few people who don't know these people to make the decision. So why not we consider something like that instead of just name change would be like namely at the edges? Mvasekie, what do you think?
Well, what we have to understand, all of what you talk about is the result of one group of people trying to control everybody.
Yeah.
One group of people were predominant in Monrovia, and they wanted to have complete control over everybody in the country. You can never have a nation at peace. Like those who are saying, oh, tribalism, no. It is not the native people that promoted tribalism. It is those people. You cannot have a situation where 3%, 4% just came and want to impose their will, political, economic, everything, exploited the 99% of the people, and you expect that to be in peace? Because all of what you're talking about, it has its root in one group of people who want to control. And obviously, between the American Liberia and the rest of the population, if you came to Africa, you are African. After more than 170 years, do they still see themselves as African or do they see themselves as an American? They should join their African brothers and sisters. The people that came on the boat from America, they are no longer alive. Those people that are still alive now, these are the grandchildren, descendants. You may be a descendant, but you are African. You were born in Africa, so let them stop seeing themselves as African. So they need to fully integrate with the majority of the people so that we can have a decentralized governing system whereby if I'm from Nimba County, we can carry on our development there. If you're from Sano County, carry on your development. If you come from Maryland, carry on your development. So all these things can be discussed, but obviously at that particular moment, changing the name is going to develop a new consciousness for us that will discuss all of these other problems. And for our American Liberian brothers and sisters to still see themselves as American Liberian, it's wrong. They're African. There should not be creating any division between them and the rest of the people, because you can never have a situation again where 4% want to rule everybody forever. You can't do that. That system was unsustainable, and to think that they could have maintained that system forever, it was a complete error on their part. I believe all of us are conscious today. We know we've been through the war. We've been through so many things. We know what our liability is. So if we all realize today that we are the same, despite the fact that we could be Christian, we could be Muslim, we could be Mano, Gio, Madingo, all these things, people existed thousands and thousands of years before the settler came there. So the settler cannot come and impose one controlling system and expect that everybody should live with that forever. So the problem is not, the problem here is that we are not sitting down to see how we can forge ahead. But I believe every other thing that is wrong with Liberia, we are starting a very big conversation right now, and Monrovia is the starting point for that. Thank you.
All right, folks, in cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia. It's Primetime Sunday, and we have been discussing the topic with this question: should we change Monrovia? Talking about the name Monrovia, should we change it to something else? That is what we have been discussing. Folks, I'm enjoying myself, but we have gone 2 hours. Every good thing must come to an end. Dennis, what do we do? Read a few comments and then take closing statement.
I still have questions, but I agree with you.
Keep that one. We can do part 2. This is so juicy that I don't want us to go either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Abby Tyler said you have almost everybody intermarrying, but you are still saying those people. Oh, that's for you, Mr. Mvasekie.
Well,
Jackie Sayed.
I'm saying in a very unifying way. I'm saying now, those whose forefathers came from America should stop seeing themselves as any different from me, any different from you, Zawolo, or Chubby Charlie. We are all Liberian. We are all African. If we start making the distinction as if to say, oh, you want to take away my culture, you want to take away the culture I brought from America. No, you in Africa, man. See yourself as no less than an African person, just like you and me. We are all African. If we begin to do that, that is the root of our cultural revolution. Don't see yourself as American stepchild. Don't see yourself any other way other than the fact that you are African. And the fact that those that came on the boat, they are no longer alive. If you are their descendant, that's fine. But you were born and raised in Africa. See yourself as African. Join the majority of the African people in Liberia to shape the destiny of that country.
Thank you. Yeah, Dennis, a few comments, and then we'll get closing statement from our panelists.
And the first comment is from me because in 2005, I wrote an article confronting the Congo country rift. And the argument I use is almost similar to what Mvasekie said. I said, well, there were people that came from Great Britain and settled in Nigeria. They did not call themselves Great Britino Nigerian or Ivorian or Franco-Ivorian, right? So people came from somewhere. It's time for us to merge. But again, it's part of our history. If we want to keep that special group of people as American Liberians, but let us relate and work together as one. Few more comments here. I know my Yanni Gova's son said they refuse to educate the majority for political reasons. The settlers were afraid of losing power, I believe, understandably so, to the native majority. The settlers scored 0 for not educating everyone. Only Tubber knew illiteracy was a disease and an impediment to development. Edward Amara made a comment here that I'm looking for to read because he's given a reason. He's saying that if we start naming the country, like Duko, it will give rise to it will give rise to tribalism because everybody will want to name the place after their own ethnic group. I don't believe that, so I wanted to read that comment.
Yeah, keep reading while I find it, Dennis.
Yeah, the late William R. Tubbard built a senior high school in the borough of Negro Town, and that brought relief to many students in the area. Sadly, he was assassinated by Doe, and the name of the school was changed to D12 High School. This was so sad. Even Charlotte Tubbard High School name was changed to Central High School. This was a clear indication to erase the achievement of the late President Tubbard. This was not the right thing to do. I want to respond to that quickly because when people build things and name it after themselves, that's what happened. You wait and let people name things after you. Current leaders, every current leader that naming things after themselves, that's bad for the country because when you name, it's like you're giving yourself honor. Wait, let other people give you honor.
Dennis, besides
that, I think I've seen the comment you were talking about from Amara. Let me read it. Okay. I think you are responding to Sano Konneh, and he writes, Sano Konneh, we are not looking at the issue with the same lens. Trust me, if this were to become reality, you will see every tribe submitting different types of names. It will become a war of which tribe to choose the name from.
Yeah, that was that response. But he first said, and that is not true. But let's go. Amelia talked about I say great discussion. I always wonder why the official name was not Duko. Some of the countries whose names have been changed, but no good impact on the citizens, with the exception of Ghana. And that's Edward Amara, upper voter to Burkina Faso, Zaire to the Democratic Republic of Congo, Southern Rhodesia to Zimbabwe, Gold Coast to Ghana. Unfortunately, all these countries are still suffering from the disease found in Liberia, whose name has not been changed.
All right. Dennis, let's get closing statement from these guys. Gentlemen, I think it is good that the three of you are trying to provide leadership in this effort to remove these labels, I call them colonial labels, honor of country, you guys think that that's will bring about the consciousness and renewing the search for the identity. I don't need that. I know where I'm from. That is my disagreement with you, but I also recognize that what you are doing, you believe in it, and so I need to have that unique understanding. Gentlemen, again, we will not hesitate to come to you to do this again. I think the viewers, as you can see from the comments, they are engaged and they're enjoying the conversation. We will come to an end of this broadcast, but we can't do that without getting your parting statement. Let's start with Chorpie. He's in the car and he has been waiting for long. My man, what's your final
and
thought?
as you conclude, Chorpie, as each of you conclude, please make sure that you include how is it going to benefit us. Chorpie, you can talk about politically. Mr. Zawolo, you can talk about education, and Mvasekie, you can talk about culturally. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, again, say thank you very much for giving us giving opportunity to this platform, and I want to also extend my really good thanks to the audience for the interaction we've had. I think it was a very good interaction. We encourage these kind of very powerful dialogue on these questions. These are very passionate issues for some of us. So if we come across as being very strong, I do apologize, but these issues we take them very serious, and we have no ill will towards anybody who have made a comment here. I will close on this comment about everybody want to name the place after them. You know, again, we go back to our culture. If you look at Liberia as a country, we have the country is grouped into two general culture. We have an overall Liberian culture. We have two, the Kwa and the Mare speaking groups. Two tribes in Liberia are other part of one. The Bassa tribe is part of both of these cultures. The Bassa tribe is part of the Kwa society and part of the Male society. The Mandingo tribe is part of none of these culture. I mean, these are some of the unique of Liberia. But interestingly, before the arrival of the settlers, you'll find that our people live amongst themselves, even with this tribal governance. There was negotiation. If you study the ACS, they will describe to you when the ACS initially arrived in Liberia, they describe to you a scene when they went to meet a Bassa chief, how this chief had his warrior outside his horse and how they had to go in the house. So it's also the uniqueness of our people in terms of governance system they have in place. So that governance system allow respect. So that respect means that the people in the Pele Kingdom, for lack of word, name most of the places they go in, most of the Pele places they name most of the places after Pele people, after the Pele tribe, there is no contest. If you go in Loma, you will see most of the places are named after their own culture. There's no contest, Nima contest. Similarly, all these places have names that reflect the tribe and culture of those places. So Monrovia, after the tribe and culture of those who inherit that place, will never raise any contentions among other tribes in Liberia because they very well understand the culture practice. And even today, our people practice the culture and pro society, which again has been demonized by so-called intellectuals, having no understanding about governance and politics in our country. So I just want to make that point that there is contest, no tribe. That's why even all of the tribes in Liberia have some form of pronunciation that's a name like Duko or whatever to Monrovia. That tells you that people respect that name and they believe in it. There's no contest. So as a first point to dismiss that argument that there will be a problem, tribes will be fighting. Well, no, our people respect that tradition and culture, and there's no contest there. How does it help Liberia politically? It helps Liberia politically because the consciousness that awakened all of this name change, as we have been discussing here, the name change alone is not just about name change. It has brought all the discussed broad range of issues, whereby we look at history not just from a storytelling point, because history if you want to examine the past, you don't really examine the past based on history, Somali story. You have to examine the past based on anthropology, sociology, or psychology. Really understand in a neutral, scientific, objective way. And if you look at Liberia history in that faction, now reading some book by A. Doris Ben-Herring telling me about a tailor and port or somebody running down the street, Mitchell Dimple or whatever they call that stuff. If you read an objective understanding of the past, you appreciate that politically, again, coming back to our culture, our people existed. Look some of the advertisements from antebellum Southern America, where they took experts in rice because they really needed people from West Africa to grow these crops on the plantation in the south because the weather condition was suitable to West Africa. So you will see signs in the south, in the old newspaper, where they brought people from Cape Mount, which are named after by the Portuguese. They said they brought rice expert in growing rice on the plantation in South America. So again, this cultural revolution, we're working on the governance aspect of our country politically so that we can marry that political governance with the Western governance in order to transform our country in a way that we can appreciate who we are as a people. Again, a question of identity, who we are as people, and how we can continue to coexist amongst ourselves and with other people. So it's very fundamental. And again, we want to encourage everybody. Let's continue to have an honest and brutal dialogue about these questions. I mean, everybody can come up. We should not be afraid to propose this question. We should not be afraid to address this question. Let's discuss it, but let's be honest in our conversation. Let's not just come to make an argument. Thank you again very much, and we look forward to being on the platform anytime soon.
So, Charlie, Dad, we will come to Mvasekie for his closing. And Mvasekie, don't forget, how does it help our country culturally?
Well, Dennis and I are literary people. We are interested in promoting Liberian culture through literature because we know that a true literature of a nation must be fed by its culture. And just like Chorpie Charlie referred to the Kwa speaking group, there's something also in Liberia called the Mandi Fu and the Mandi Tan. If you study and understand that, it groups together some of the group like the Mano, the Madingo, and other tribe. I'm not sure right now which one the Mandi Fu describe or which one the Mandi Tan describe. We're going to do some study on that. Next time we're going to do that. I mean, to shed some light on that. But the most important thing here is that I'm a cultural activist. I like to see Liberian culture flourishing through Liberian literature, so that when we talk about literature in Africa, Liberia must take its place among the community of nations of Africa. You cannot have literary process that are being won by the lack of Chinua Achebe from Nigeria, the lack of Kamaralai from Guinea, and the lack of Amadou Kuruma from Ivory Coast. All these people are winning international literary prizes, but we are like orphan children. We don't belong anywhere. We don't win any literary prize in America. We don't win literary prize in Africa. Then similarly, when it comes to our music, where other African musicians are going around and they survive me, there are people patronizing them, supporting them. Like if a Guinean artist come in America, they're not going to leave America without maybe 20, 30, 50,000 $50,000 the least they're going to make. Ivorians are the same. Liberians do not promote their own culture. If a Liberian musician comes here right now, he's not going to be able to go back. Matter of fact, you're going to try to see how he can stay here to be doing the same 9-to-5 job other folks are doing. It's because we have not developed the consciousness to support those our literary figure, our music, and things like that. It comes from what? We don't love who we are. You know? There's no reason why Zach and Jiba could not be competing up to today, but since the Zach and Jiba whole situation is there, you know? So all of those things has a ramification with what we are discussing here. You cannot talk about independent people if you're not culturally independent of who you are. Your culture has to sell you to the rest of the world. So one of the reasons we are not making any headway in Africa is because we are not operating on our own cultural basis. So we have to do that. Then the last thing I want to say, Brother Ali Kamara and Sister Jackie Sayer, they made my day. I really appreciate their comment and the comments of all the other people. Professor Larry Davis, I disagree with him. He's trying to say there was nothing there before the settler came, but people existed for thousands and thousands of years. How did they exist? How did they survive all those thousands of years? If you can't tell me there was nothing there before the settler came, there was something there. Something that made people to survive for thousands of years is the reason we are talking about today. So it's a great program. Focus on Liberia. My hat's off to you. You guys, are the best among all Liberian talk show hosts because of the diversity of issues we discuss. Thank you so much, and I'm glad to be here, and hope to come back here. And my colleagues, Chubby Charlie, Professor Zawolo, and everybody on my team, thank you guys so much. It's a great thing that we come out with something that is resonating with Liberians all over the place. There's a minority voice against our effort, but majority of the people are on board. And those who try to use tribalism to say that is the West in the country, no, they don't know what they're talking about. It's not an issue of tribalism. We can promote genuine Pan-Africanism in Liberia, given the fact that we all come from different places. It takes a government, a conscious people in government to promote the unity among people. So I would say the root of tribalism in Liberia was not so by the native people. It was the people, the 3% and 4% that came and wanted to control other people forever. They are the one that saw the seed of tribalism in Liberia.
Mvasekie, Konneh read that, and it's so powerfully. I enjoyed that. Mvasekie, and Mvasekie, you were right. Focus on Liberia. Of all the Liberian platform, is the only one I know that bring Liberian artists here and interview them. We brought Jody, we brought Miss Nene, we brought one young Liberian artist called Ozawie. We've played Liberian songs here. We need to encourage them and support them. Thank you for making that clear. Professor Zawolo, you are on the educational side. Close us. How does this idea help us educationally?
I think, Chorpie kind of like went into how this helps us educationally. We study history in school. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that some of us who've been involved with education in Liberia have been raising concern about lately is the manner in which we teach history. Very common to Liberian history classroom is when did this thing happen? Who did this? And the rest of it. And so we're beginning to lead a new movement to say that we need to not just know when it happened, who did it, and how it happened, but we need to get into the why and the why not of those things. Initiating discussion about changing the name of our capital city, it provides a whole lot of rooms for our students to learn about their history, to appreciate their heritage, learn about the contribution of their ancestors, and be motivated and inspired to join in the line of their ancestors to make even more contributions to our culture, to our way of life, to our country, and to our people. So that's some of the things that this discussion and subsequently the change of name will do for us in Liberia. So having said that, I wanted to just extend my thanks and appreciation to you, Focus on Liberia, for continuing to accommodate this kind of discussions. I want to thank all of those who participated today, even those who disagree with our position. I indicated that we have a movement. We're going to take this movement live on social media, on other platforms. I want to invite people, whether you support us or you disagree with us, to come in and join and participate in the discussions so that, at the end of the day, whatever decision is reached, we all can proudly say that we're part of it, unlike what transpired at the initiation of our country called Liberia, when certain people were excluded from participation. So we want to invite you to come and come and join us. Look, I hear it when people say that, Other countries have changed their names. They have done all of these things. The countries still remain underdeveloped. I hear it and I understand it when people say there are many other issues in Liberia that requires our attention. I agree with all of those perspectives. But what I'm saying is that can we work for the development of Liberia and at the same time work on our national identity? I say yes. They can be done concomitantly. Now, will what we do today translate into Liberia being a superpower? Will it translate into Liberia being a world economic power? Perhaps, perhaps not. But that doesn't absolve us of the responsibility of engaging those most critical issues. Because we believe that when these questions are answered, we'll be able to reconcile our people and we'll set ourselves on a foundation on which we can build a better and a stronger society. So again, thank you, and thank you to all of those in Radio Line who have participated today. I appreciate your criticism, and we've learned a lot from some of the people who've been commenting here. I've been reading it, and I appreciate those comments, and we'll take our cues from that and learn. Thank you again.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Konneh, you in your closing, you laid the blame solely at the feet of the American Liberians for tribalism in Liberia, and just that was your second time saying it. Do you think that's fair?
Well, in any society, no society should promote any culture that will make anyone feel superior to the other people. The moment you develop the psychology of superiority over other people, it means that you're trying to devalue them. And when you devalue other people, they're not going to sit down and allow that to happen. They're going to bounce back some kind of way. So if we want to build a society based on equality, we get a similar effort to promote the multicultural identity of Liberia. Nobody going to talk about tribalism. But we started as a nation where one group of people want to suppress other group of people. You can't do that. No nation can be strong with that kind of situation, because what it develops a control system where one group of people always want to be in control. You can't develop it in a nation like that. So I would say that holistically, we did not start on the good footing. So that is the reason there may be tribal sentiment. Because take me for example as a Madingo person. Okay, when the war started, we became victim, and we decided to say, "Look, what is happening to us is not fair." We went and formed our own military group, ULIBO. Learn. These were dominated by Madingo people and Crown people. If you have a society where nobody feel victimized, where nobody feel like other people looking down on you, you have a society that promotes multiculturalism. You're not going to have a situation where the Mvasekie Konneh had to go and mobilize a tribal group to come and fight. Other people had to go and mobilize the Crown people to come and fight. Other people go and mobilize the Crew people to come and fight. No, no system should make anybody to feel inferior in the same country to the extent that they have to go and start fighting tribal war. That's what I'm trying to say.
All right. No, I appreciate your comment. I just wanted to say that with the complexity, it become little oversimplification when you say, this one group is solely responsible. That's what I wanted to bring to your attention.
Okay.
Mr. C.
All right. On that note, folks, in cyberspace, we are drawing down the curtains here. Our very, very big thank you to our panelists here, Chorpie Charlie, Mvasekie Konneh, and Professor Axel Zawolo. To you, our listeners, those of you who send those powerful comments, I was just reading them and learning from them. Our panelists did the same as well. This is how a conversation intended for national development, and maybe Mr. Zawolo will say national consciousness, should start. Those are the words the professors will use. Consciousness, because it awakens the mind of the people to the reality of who they are and the issues around them, and they are able to march into history. Students like Chorpie Charlie, I'm talking about your student days, will say that march into history. That's the big word. And Dennis Jab from Didokan will say, why? He stay asking why. My name is Anthony Sie. this is how we will come to the end of this broadcast. We have a song for you.
I wanted to play that song too that said, "You don't have the answer name to defeat us." Go ahead, play the song.
All right, folks, we have that song that says, "We are all Liberians, and Liberia is our home." That is why we were here for almost 2 hours. You want to see that beautiful city called Monrovia, but we want to change that name. Some people are making an argument. But my point here is that we want a Liberia where we all feel a part and parcels of it. No matter who you are and what part you come from, that is the country we are fighting for. The soul of a nation that we can be proud of. We come into Western land, we ride beautiful cars, we see the roads, we enjoy that. We want that too in Liberia. That is why we must start a conversation devoid of insults. And that's why we see on Facebook, and that is disgraceful. We must stop that. Hey, don't get me started. I'm bringing that song for you. Folks, this is how we draw down the curtains. I'm Anthony here saying bye-bye on behalf of Dennis Yard.
Thank you.
We are Liberia. Liberia is our home. Liberia people.
DJ House of Pain. Yes, I like this one. Human right is